Welcome to the EcoSend podcast. Be inspired, educated, and entertained by the world's most ambitious leaders, putting climate at the top of their agenda.
Hi there, welcome to another episode of the EcoSend podcast. I'm James, your host, and this is a show where we talk to wonderful, inspiring leaders about how they're making the world a little bit better in their own businesses. Today, I am thrilled to be joined by Tim Jones, who is also known as the BCorp Bloke. Tim is the CEO, founder, and B consultant at Grow Good, a global consulting firm that specializes in helping businesses simplify and fast track their B Corp journey. I'm very excited to be talking to you today, Tim. Hello from London. How are you doing over there?
Hello. Yeah. G'day, kia ora, as we would say here in New Zealand, or I am half Welsh, so I've been learning a bit of Welsh. We'll go with Shemai for the Welsh listeners that you have out there.
Amazing. I'm definitely going to need some subtitles if we continue the Welsh.
Yeah, a year on Duolingo, and I wouldn't say I'm fluent, but I can probably butcher my way through some stuff.
Brilliant. Well, I've already learned something, so yeah, there we go. Thanks for joining me today, Tim. I know on my side, we're 8:30ish in the morning. On your side, you've just had dinner, so this is probably the longest distance episode of the show we've done yet, I think.
Excellent.
So,
look at that,
yeah.
Power of the internet.
It's incredible what we can do these days, isn't it? I'm thrilled to be chatting. Obviously, on this show, we've had a fair bit of discussion about B Corp in the past, and we ourselves are going through the B Corp process at the moment. Lots of wonderful businesses going through this movement. But I guess before we dive into that, it'd be great to hear more about you, Tim. Who are you, and what are you up to?
Yeah, who am I? The ultimate question. So yeah, I guess the majority of my work is currently focused on helping companies simplify and fast track their journey to B Corp. We just find, a lot of people get stuck on the journey if they don't have, sustainability knowledge internally. It can just be a tricky process. So that's the vast majority of what I do. Been sort of hanging around the B Corp movement since about 2014 was when I first came across it.
Yeah.
After having a bit of an early, I call it an early midlife crisis or a hard Brexit from the corporate world. Where I live in Christchurch here in New Zealand, we had a sequence of massive earthquakes in 2010, 2011, and then 2012. My wife and I had our daughter, and over that period of time, had what is called in the clinical literature a subconscious awakening. So I'd been very happily just earning money and living a corporate life in the world of medical device sales. So selling hips and knees to orthopedic surgeons, and then spinal instruments and implants to neurosurgeons and orthopedic surgeons. And having this kind of wake up moment, I was like, hang on a minute, actually the companies that I work for aren't that nice. It's well documented, and there's a documentary on Netflix called The Bleeding Edge, which is a bit of an expose of the sort of corruption and malfeasance in the medical device world. I think the pharmaceutical world is fairly well documented as to how perhaps they've not been the world's best corporate citizens, but the medical device world is almost 1,000 times bigger, but probably 10,000 times less well known. But anyone who's been into the hospital to have a grandmother or mother or parent or auntie or uncle who's had a hip replacement or anything like that, there's 10 to 15 companies trying to sell that product to the surgeon to get them to use their version of it. And it's quite competitive. So had that bit of awakening, and that ultimately led me on a massive journey of self-discovery to sort of work out, well, what is life all about? Why am I working for these companies who were basically knowingly killing patients in pursuit of profit?
Wow.
And you kind of go, well, if there's one industry in the world that should just be about saving lives, it should be the medical one. But it turns out that the companies, and in some cases the private institutions, so private hospitals, and in some cases the surgeons who were operating, in private, were more focused on the financial side rather than, patient care. And so kind of went down a bit of a rabbit hole of self-discovery, and on that journey I came across this B Corp thing, and I was like, okay, wow, this is it. This is, yes, make money, but don't profiteer. And also, while you're making your money, just consider how that's impacting people on the planet. well, that doesn't seem like a dumb idea, really. But from what I came out of, and so yeah, here I am 9 years later, still talking to B Corp to anyone that will listen. So thanks for the opportunity.
My goodness, I had no idea about that previous life, Tim, and it sounds like it's really driven you into wanting to change things. What an inspiring kind of story to come into this from. I guess as well, like at that time, 2014. How long had B Corp been going? That was very early days, right?
B Corp was started in 2006 in the States. But yeah, the first couple I think in year one, they certified 10 companies or something. The co-founders so B Corp. So my company is a B Corp. You're going to become a B Corp, but B Lab is the non-profit entity that runs the certification framework. And the three co-founders of B Lab, Jay, Andrew, and Bart, they founded that in 2006. And in the first year, they got 10. They were all in. Well, Bart and Jay were involved with And One, which is a global basketball apparel brand. And after they exited that, they realised that they realised the opportunity that business has for making a difference in the world. Versus either the investment world or I guess the political world. So the B Corp world at that time in 2014, there was there were two B Corps here in New Zealand. There was maybe a handful in Australia. Globally, it was around about 1,000.
Sure.
And we're now at 8,000. Well over 8,000. I think the UK's got over 2,000 now.
We're doing all right in the UK. We seem to be on the up and up in the UK. There's, whenever I go to the local shops, I see that B more and more.
Just everywhere. I mean, I was just at a networking event just now. It was hosted at a B Corp's venue. They were hosting another B Corp. And on the table, we had a B Corp soft drink, some B Corp chocolate, and there was another B Corp brand. I can't remember what it was. It's almost like B Corp Inception now. Wherever you go, whereas before, you'd go and maybe there'd be one small reference to B Corp, and then everyone else would be like, I don't know what you're on about.
Yeah.
But now, the awareness is there. Like you say, increasingly, you go into your local supermarket, your local, corner shop, you can probably buy 5 to 10 B Corp brands, which is phenomenal.
Absolutely. It's all heading in the right direction. It feels. I guess I don't know. Maybe there are some people listening or watching that are wondering.
It's like, what is this?
Wait a minute. Just this B. I keep hearing B. What is the B? What is this?
Back up the truck.
What is B?
Yeah. It's not. Ironically, I was asked to MC a conference. I think it was about a couple of years ago. It was the New Zealand Apiary Society, which is the beekeepers. And I thought about making some bee jokes around B Corp, but I thought this is pretty niche. I'm not going to go there. But yes, we're not talking about bees or beekeepers. So B corporations are this new form of business that aim to balance purpose and profit. So historically, you start a business. I mean, particularly in the UK, it's really easy. You go to company's house, you register a company, boom, we're in business. Literally, you are in business, and
then the next day you make £1 million.
Yeah,
that's how it works.
Yeah. Obviously, and your only duties are to trade solvently and legally. That's it. That is the baseline for business. And I guess, the founders of B Corp and B Lab, a bit like myself, had this realization that there's a better way to run business. So to become a B Corp, you go through what I like to call a rigorous but achievable independent verification process, where your business's performance across 5 areas currently is assessed. So it looks at your governance, your workers, your community impact, your environmental impact, and then your customer model. And it basically looks at your performance and you get benchmarked. It's a score-based system where you need to meet a minimum threshold of 80 out of 200 points. And once you've, on this initial self-assessment, it's basically like a big online assessment tool. Once you think you're across the 80 out of 200 threshold, you then submit your assessment, if you want to, for the independent verification by B Lab. And so the assessment tool, if you just Google B Impact Assessment, it's completely free to go and have a look at the tool and just start thinking about your business and how it's performing in a manner other than its financial performance. But yeah, if you want to go and get the independent certification, you might be able to see the red certificate behind me. That's my OG B Corp certificate back in the day. I don't think they do red ones anymore. So to get the certificate, to get the independent proof that you are doing what you say you're doing, then you have to go and be audited by B Lab. And that's essentially. And I always forget, but people then always ask, what does the B stand for? So the B stands for benefit. So basically, beyond just making money for your shareholders or the people that own your company, what benefit does your company provide, more broadly to people and planet?
Sure thing. That was a great summary. Thank you, Tim, for that. I had definitely seen the B Corp logo quite a lot as a consumer, and it took a while for me to realize that it was actually such an accessible thing. And now going through it, we haven't yet been independently assessed. I think it's been this incredibly helpful framework for understanding more about how to do business better. I think there was a bit of an eye-opener for me when it kind of dawned on me that you don't have to leave the charitable stuff to charities, and you don't have to leave all the good stuff to charities. Like, businesses, it's okay to do some good. And
100%.
I think that's quite once you kind of unlock that in your brain, because I feel like so much of the history of business has been profit and revenue and growth, and everything else is a distraction. I don't know, it's not really a question, but it's more of a comment. I just feel like that's quite an awakening.
Well, they're two good comments, and time again we hear of people who say exactly what you just said. I had no idea that my business could do this stuff, and the evidence is there and is overwhelming that the businesses that do this stuff, that are better, that do think about more than just making money, do better. So I like to say it makes sense and sense. It's good business sense, but there's also money in it. It's I riff off the beginnings of the B Lab and B Corp movement being from the basketball world. There is a slam dunk business case for B Corp, because there is, or I call it the ROI times 2. The data is clear, and there was a recent study done late last year by B Lab. They did a meta-analysis of 18 different, papers, essentially white papers, on the financial performance of B Corps versus non-B Corps. And in 16 out of 18, they showed that B Corp performance had either a neutral or positive impact on the financial, success of the company. And 2 out of 18 showed that there were potential short-term costs with going through B Corp certification. Well, it's like, well, there's examples of that. There's if a company has to completely change its manufacturing process because it realizes, having gone through this, that actually this is really dirty. Like, we might be using coal-fired power to dry our product. Let's say it's a food-based product, and they've been using coal-based power. Well, you might have to look to electrify that. Okay, well, there's going to be an operational cost, but that's a clear win for the planet. To change that. The economic evidence is there. A good mate of mine here, he talks about it. It just shines a light into the corners and crevices of your business that you didn't even know existed. And having done that, you can create a better business. But also, just talking about, yes, businesses, I think, has been hoodwinked into the idea of profit at all costs. It's a relatively recent phenomena, though, because I think if you look back to the indulge me for a second, so I have a degree in medieval history.
That's opened up a whole other topic.
That's a whole other, from medieval history to medical device consultant to B Corp consultant. Yeah, discuss. But if you think back, back in, well, I don't know if your name Gill, is that short for something? Is it maybe short for Gilly, or I don't know? But if you look at a lot of surnames that people carry in the modern world, like Fletcher, Cooper, Shoemaker. The work that you did was so important to the community that you provided that product for, that you were ultimately named after your contribution. And so back in the day, if I was making some shoes and you're making the barrels, if you start making really shoddy barrels that aren't fit for purpose, and then you start taking too many trees down, which means that the house builder can't actually, it hasn't got enough. It's not long before it's like, James, look, appreciate your barrels are pretty good, mate, but you're being a bit of a dick. So could you stop, or else you need to go and find a new village? And so there was almost like a containment, almost like the it's like the what do they call it? The failure of the commons, or the loss of the commons. That whole idea of like things held in common that we all have to rely on, put an artificial or put a constraint on you taking too much. Whereas business has kind of morphed over the last 100 years, really post the Industrial Revolution, where it's like, well, hang on a minute, okay, I can now make more than I need, and I can now, I can make a massive excess. And then you kind of get the introduction of the whole idea of shareholders. Okay, now I can get other people's money to put into my business to scale it even further. but then you also look back at like the Quaker run businesses in the late sort of or post-industrial era, like the Cadbury's, Fry's, where actually had these benevolent business owners who built worker housing and made sure people were paid a good wage and gave people time off and gave them sick leave, which wasn't the thing. So I think it's interesting when we actually, it's kind of almost a mate of mine came up with it, but I've stolen it. He let me have it. It's like I kind of feel the B Corp movement and the business for good is about reclaiming the lost soul of business, because I think business used to have a soul. It used to be thinking about how it interacted with people around it, but it's actually a recent blip that it's gone the other way. So I think it's within all of us to want to do the good. It's just that we've lost touch with it.
I did not expect us to get back to medieval times here, Tim.
Mate,
that was pretty eye-opening, actually. It's such a good point, though. Like, yeah, I mean, we live in this world today with so much, the term. I remember at school learning about the term globalization, and and the existence of container ships taking everything around the world, and and then I think you saw I guess in some ways I think about like the 80s as that peak of like buy, sell, and greed is good. And
I remember, I don't know if you remember it, but it would have been like early 90s, the No Fear brand, and it had like these two eyes, like sort of angry looking eyes. And one of the slogans they had on a t-shirt was "He who dies with the most toys wins," and it's like that just sums up the late 80s, early 90s mindset of just consume, have more, just all about you, don't worry about anybody else or anything else. But and I think also, I guess you have to look at good old Maggie Thatcher with her, there is no such thing as society, it's all about you. That just rampant individualism that was given to us or told that that's how we should operate, the 70s and 80s, that sort of Thatcher Reagan economics. But we're a deeply tribal animal. We have to have society. We are reliant on other people. You cannot be, no man is an island. You cannot just be out there on your own looking after yourself, because at some point you will need someone else. And I think we're slowly, and that's one of the sort of core tenets of the B Corp movement, is the whole idea of interdependency. We are all interconnected, and even on a sort of atomic level, we're all made from stardust. We all came from the Big Bang. We're all connected. So to say that you are not connected to everyone else on the planet and what you do doesn't impact or affect anyone else is pretty dumb at best.
Totally. No, totally. I totally agree. I think touching back on some of the earlier stuff you were saying as well, I think just from our own perspective of going through the B Corp process, I think we've found it's been this incredibly eye-opening assessment to do. And I was just wondering, for your business, Tim, aside from the wonderful societal, going back to the origins of business, aside from that, from a business perspective, how have you seen it benefit? And especially, I guess I'm asking that question in terms of like, in any business, there's always someone who's there's usually someone pushing for B Corp, but then there's also often people that are like, really, do we really have time for this? Do we really have money for this? Should we? So how do you? Yeah, it'd be good to hear a little bit more about that as well. Yeah,
I mean, there are certain industry sectors that if you're not doing B Corp, it's going to be table stakes in the very near future. So if you are a FMCG, so if you're a fast-moving consumer good products, I think it's about 40% of B Corp, 40% of the total B Corp world comes in that consumer goods sector.
Right.
So pretty soon, if you're cosmetics, food, beverage, anything that you're seeing in a supermarket, if you're not thinking about B Corp pretty soon, the majority of your competitors probably will be. So all of a sudden, it's not going to be, oh, how aspirational, look at this brand, they're a B Corp. It's going to be, what are you guys doing that means you can't be a B Corp? So definitely watch out in those sectors. So, but beyond that, there's definitely, and again, there's evidence and data to back this up. So employee retention and attraction. Increasingly, the generations coming through, they want to have more meaning, more purpose in the work that they do, and they want it to be true. They don't want to see some meaningless, vacuous values, list of some values on the wall that are compromised at the first opportunity to make more money. They want to know that you can prove your purpose, and B Corp can do that for you. Like I say, customers, particularly in that FMCG sector, but again, more broadly, there are more conscious consumers who are more willing to support brands that can prove that they're doing good. We're definitely seeing regulatory pressures. So at the big end of town, listed companies pretty much in most developed markets around the world are now having to do at least mandatory reporting on environmental performance.
Yeah.
And so if you are in the supply chain of a big company, it's not going to be long before someone in that company is calling somebody in your company and going, so James, I noticed that we've spent $1,000 with you or £1,000 with you. I'd like to know what your environmental footprint is, please. Oh, and while you're at it, what social stuff are you doing? So we're definitely seeing that sort of regulatory, which I guess you could also sort of regulatory stroke supply chain pressure. So I'd say supply chain pressure probably split that up slightly differently, because we also see there's a bunch of medium-sized companies who are now B Corps, who are now maybe looking at recertification and looking at their supply chain and go, well, hang on a minute, but there's some points here. At least getting some knowledge of our supply chain, we're going to get some more points. But if we can have more B Corps in our supply chain, or at least have some companies that have got third-party certification, whether it's like FSC paper or some, or fair trade or organic certified, like that's going to help the mothership. So we definitely still a lot of these tails wagging multiple dogs, where they're now having, they've gone through B Corp themselves and having that conversation. And then I'd say the other sector, or the other pressure, would be the financial sector. We're seeing banks globally again increasingly they're coming under pressure from where they get their money from, to be able to say, we don't have any money being invested with existentially risky industries, definitely, but they now want to know what the sort of middle ground of people are doing, who aren't necessarily evil doing bad things, but they're not overtly good. It's just like a mum and dad business that's just doing its thing. So there's increasing spotlight on all of those. And so all of those. I mean, one example, we had a client here. The day after they certified, they got about $6,000 worth of free media in the local media, and their bank rang them and said, "Oh, I see that you're a B Corp now. Well, we have a sustainable loan that B Corps are eligible for, which is actually the same loan that you've already got with us. So we can save you $30,000." So
wow.
in 12 hours, they got back the cost of their certification and a fee, probably, twice over in 12 hours. So there's some, really good anecdotal cases like that. But again, the evidence is there that all those groups now are looking at every business and wanting you to. The key is they want you to prove what you're doing. Is what you say, what you're saying that you're doing. And that's where B Corp typically is winning out, because there's a bunch of certifications you can look at. And some people might be really interested in more environmental certifications. Yeah. Some people might go, look, we want to be child labour free or living wage certified or whatever. But why B Corp is winning out, I think, across all of these areas is because it's globally recognised, it's social and environmental performance, and it's independently verified. And there's no other framework that offers all of that, Because you could be living wage certified here in New Zealand. Well, if you're selling that into the UK, well, who cares? Well, likewise, if you've got a UK certification, well, does that mean anything in America? Well, probably not. So B Corp. I mean, there has been some market research done recently. Brand recognition, I think, in the States was around about the 30% mark, and I think in the UK it's quite high as well. So it is a bit of a chicken and egg. But the more companies that are certifying and are becoming better at telling the story, which is what obviously you can help people with, we're building up, both sides of the ledger. More people are aware of B Corp, more people want to buy it, more pressure on companies. Okay, we should probably look at this B Corp things if we want to stay competitive. Okay, well, we're certified, let's tell the story. And so it's building on each other. So it's quite an exciting time.
Absolutely. I mean, it definitely feels like some of the stuff you were saying before, the sort of the ripple effect of one B Corp alone can be huge, but seeing the to continue the water analogy, the rising tide of all of the times you're seeing that B logo. And I mean, in London, I'm seeing the B Corp logo on the side of buses for ads. It's like, at the very least, people are going to start asking, what does that mean? Or
100%.
Just seeing it. And the more they see it, I mean, how many times do you have to see it before you start thinking, what is that? And looking at it. So it's and sometimes I think, is it just because I'm obsessed with this this movement and this world? But I mean, I genuinely do believe I'm seeing it more and more. Like the coffee shop I go into having a big B logo on it. Like these things they all add up. I'm
It's
absolutely
100%.
convinced of that.
Well, and in the UK, because March was B Corp month, and Waitrose and WH Smith do for the last few years have done big in-store activations. With end of aisle.
Yeah.
Hey, these brands these are all B Corp brands. So there's definitely more awareness coming through. And I think, like I say, particularly the UK, there's so many. If you haven't even, just go and have a look at it. You might be pleasantly surprised at what it's asking you. And I mean, the other thing that we quite often see is people actually getting operational savings as well once they start going through the assessment and they go, hang on a minute, why have we been buying this thing? Or hang on, actually, where do we get that from? Can we not find a more local supplier for that? Oh, okay. Well, look, we've just we've got an environmental win from getting something from closer, so we're not shipping it. And maybe we're saving some money by using a local supplier around the corner who we can build a better relationship with, who might then also introduce us to 10 of their other customers. So there's lots of these little micro wins as well that you can't almost put a price on, but are certainly there.
Absolutely. I mean, it feels like, for us at least, it's really like blown the dust off of lots of bits of the business that we probably didn't previously have a reason to necessarily revisit. And I think it's just had so many ramifications, which have been great. I am conscious of time. I feel like we're whizzing through our half hour, Tim, but
that's all good, man. I can stay for a bit longer if you need to. So.
Okay. I that would be amazing. I was going to say one of the things you wanted to talk about, which was companies getting better at telling a story about what they're doing and marketing what they're doing. I
thought this would be pertinent for what EcoSend's all about.
Sure, yeah.
I think the overarching thing that we see, I think companies who the sort of the advanced guard of companies that are doing B Corp and doing business for good are typically attracted to it for all the very right reasons. It's because we genuinely believe in it. We're probably already behaving like this. We just want to put a ring on it, make it official, and prove that we have been doing it. And I guess there's been some really well documented cases of greenwashing where people make claims about performance or standards or what they're doing, and then it's not true. But equally, and possibly just as if not more damaging, is green hushing, where what we tend to find is if people who are doing good are typically more humble, perhaps, than their less do good contemporaries, and so they're less likely to want to tell the story of the good that they're doing. But in a world that's generally starved of good news, where we know that increasingly consumers want to support the brand, it's a small thing that a consumer can do, is to go and support a brand that's at least not destroying the planet, or possibly, actually trying to make the planet or people better. So people want to connect to those brands, and they want to connect to them in an authentic way. But in general, B Corps globally are just really average at telling that story. And so I think, that's why when we discovered EcoSend, we were like, this is so cool. Like, I want to tell your story to all the B Corps that we work with, because it's just a cool story. It's like, well, why wouldn't you use EcoSend instead of, the others who I won't name in case we get sued, maybe, or whatever. I don't know how it works. But you know what I mean? It's like, why wouldn't you? You're a bunch of cool people trying to do the right thing. You're about to be a B Corp. Why wouldn't I want to support you and tell your story? But I think, in general, people just, I think the underlying fear is we're not perfect. We're maybe not, because at the minute, 200 points is what the B Corp assessment is scored out of. There's no 200 point B Corp. Well, exactly. There's no 200 point B Corp. There is no perfect company. So don't be afraid about telling the story of the good that you are doing, but just be transparent with where you aim to be better. And I think if you have that transparent conversation and say, look, we want to be better. If you think you can help us solve that, come and meet us. We'll host you for the day. We'll do a workshop with you. Like, we want to, and that's why we call our coaching program Be Better. It's like, use the B Corp framework to just be a better business. Don't be perfect, because quite often, and in all honesty, you no one can be perfect overnight, because the cost that it would take you to be perfect would probably destroy your business overnight, and that's not helped anyone, has it? So it's better that you look at the incremental impact that you can do, but as you're going on that journey, keep telling the story, keep bring people with you. And I just think it's a massive missed opportunity.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Tim. I mean, the concept of green hushing has come up quite a few times on this podcast, and actually it's kind of a bit like Inception level, because a big reason we started the EcoSend podcast was for exactly this reason. We felt we knew so little at the start of our journey, and we were genuinely so fearful that we didn't know enough that we almost just didn't. We were like, let's just steer clear of that topic, because we're definitely not experts. But I'm so glad, you sort of have to kind of step onto the moving vehicle, I guess, and totally. Like, you're going to make some mistakes, but I think it's about you make mistakes, you learn from them, and that's how you grow. That's how you
100%.
develop. That's how you
100%.
get better. Yeah.
I remember watching a documentary about Neil Young ages ago. Shows you how middle-aged I am. I like Neil Young.
I know. I'm not here to judge.
I like Neil Young and American Pale Ale. I am officially middle-aged. But it was a documentary about how because he wasn't historically a singer, and they were sort of going through his career and got to the point where he first started singing. And I think it was the lead singer in the band he was in did turn up or something along those lines. And to butcher the quote, badly, he basically said, "I just thought I'm just going to grab the microphone and start shouting in it." And I think that's such a good analogy. Just give it a go. Like he's now a multi-million stellar recording artist who, if he hadn't just given it a go, he wouldn't have done that. But I think and also on that, I was talking to a B Corp in the States the other day, and yes, there are potential unintended consequences. So you end up you think you're doing good, but actually some bad happens at the same time. That's always a risk. But if you don't, coming back to telling the story, which is limited risk, it's not like you're really going to probably hurt other people, but you won't ever really know the unintended consequences until you give the thing a go. And exactly what you said, it's like, just give it a go. You're unlikely to kill someone, which is really, that's like the worst thing that, of all worst outcomes, that's probably not going to happen. So anything below that, you're doing all right. And like you say, as long as you take on any learnings and you adjust and you grow from it, give it a go.
Always be learning. Yeah. On the topic of learning, and I know we've got to wrap the show shortly, Tim. Advice. Do you have any advice for others on this journey?
Yeah, I think just give it a go. We work with so many people who, like, B Corp it's a high standard, but if you are of the mindset and intent that you want to do good with your business, it's very achievable, because you will make the changes that you need to get across the threshold. And quite often it's gains, it's that sort of 1% gains, little updates. Yeah, okay, actually I didn't know that policy was even a thing. Now that I know that that's a thing, sure, I don't mind having it. Let's put that in. Great, let's get it done. Yeah. So I like my skiing, which is why I've got my skis in the corner here, because it's about to be the ski season here in New Zealand. And if anyone else is a big ski fan, they'll know of the Warren Miller movies. And at the end of so Warren Miller was this amazing ski videographer, and he would make this annual Warren Miller movie where they take people all over the world and have a mixture of like crazy trick shots, down off-piste skiing with some resort stuff, and it's just like a real nice 90-minute movie to get you in the mood for the ski season. But at the end of every movie, he always said, and don't forget, if you don't do it this year, you'll be 1 year older when you do. And for me, that's just like the same with B Corp. If you don't just go and log on to the free assessment this week and just go and have a look around it, you'll probably be a year older when you next do it, and there'll be 10 more of your competitors that have done it, and there'll be more customers ringing you saying, hey, what's your social performance like? And you'll have lost the best talent. So it's like, just go and it's free to go and have a look at it. What have you got to lose? Nothing.
How can you say no to that?
Yeah.
How can you say no to that? I'm going to check out these movies too. I'm not much of a skier, but I've got to check these out.
They're normally pretty good. You don't have to be much of a skier. They're normally pretty tongue-in-cheek, bit of comedy.
Sounds like some good life advice in there too.
Yeah. He nailed that one. Yeah.
Tim, thank you so much. It's been an absolute... Honestly, what a show! What a show! So I hugely appreciate you spending time with me this morning, or this evening.
Who knows?
And I just want to make sure, if anyone has been inspired to go do some stuff after this, where can they find you? Where can they keep in touch with you?
Yep. So my website is just growgood.co. So growgood.co.
Yeah.
I'm pretty prolific on LinkedIn. Is where I mainly hang out. If you just search Tim Jones at BCorp Bloke on LinkedIn, I'm pretty sure I'll be only Tim Jones at BCorp Bloke on LinkedIn. Happy if you want. I've got an ebook where I'm happy to give a link to that. Which basically is like a real summary of the. It's called. There are some pretty good cheesy jokes in the B Corp community. So my ebook is called "To Be or Not to Be: The What, Why, and How of B Corp." So if there are people who are needing to sort of sell B Corp to their business partner, colleague, boss, whatever, there's all the data and the evidence is sort of in there, as well as a bit of a background as to where B Corp came from. So yeah, I'm more than happy to give you access to that to share with your listeners.
Brilliant. And does that come in Welsh or just English?
No, I probably should do. Okay. Yeah, I should probably try and get a Welsh translation. I like it. I like where you're going. I'll make a note of that right now.
Amazing.
Apparently B Corp in Wales is picking up. Apparently they've got quite a bit of a.
Yeah.
So yeah, I need to connect in with it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tim, for joining me on the show today. It's been a pleasure. We'll make sure we have all those links in the show notes as well, so you can go find Tim as you need to. So thank you also, everyone, for watching and listening, and we will catch you next time. Cheers.